Right. Okay, so we're going to start with a quick check-in, and because we're going to be talking about inclusivity and perhaps assumptions that people might or might not make, we thought as a really quick check-in, let's talk about one thing about you that people might not know just by looking at you. I will start because obviously I've had a bit of time to think about this. I'm just going to pause sharing so that I can see your faces. One thing that you probably can't tell about me is that my parents were both Dutch, and people always think when I say that, oh, you don't look Dutch, whatever that means. So I always find that an interesting comment, and I'm not always sure whether that's a positive or a negative. But yes, there we go. Kelly, is there something you would share?
I don't know if this is something you could tell from looking at me or not, but I'm ambidextrous. I can write
Ah,
with both my left and my right hand.
that's interesting. Do you have a preference?
Right-handed normally,
Yeah.
and just in a hurry, it comes in real handy. If you're on the phone and you're trying to grab a pen and do stuff, I can write with both hands.
Definitely a
But yeah,
superpower I could do with.
not something you would know from looking at me.
No, it's a good one. Barbara?
Well, you can't see me, so you can't really tell anything by looking at me, unfortunately. My webcam is just not working at all, so I do
Don't worry.
apologise. But one thing that people are often shocked about is that I've actually got nearly 30 years worth of martial arts experience, and I used to run my own martial arts school.
Wow, that is interesting. And I have seen you before, and that is possibly something that I would not have guessed. So
Yeah, looks can be very deceiving.
absolutely. And Catherine.
Hi there. Well, no, don't mess with Barbara.
No.
Random one from me. I can solve a Rubik cube.
Oh, that's also an important skill in life, I feel. Amazing.
Gets me fine.
Yes. Thank you. So yeah, just a bit of fun, but sometimes it's, interesting to sort of get people thinking about those first impressions and perceptions. But we'll start with our infant feeding line information. So I don't know if any of you have already used perhaps or seen information on social media about NCT infant feeding line, but it is a really fantastic service that NCT offers. The line offers support for a huge range of feeding challenges and feeding related queries. However baby is fed, whether that's breast milk, formula milk, mixed feeding, moving on to solids, stopping breastfeeding, infant feeding line is there to support parents. The support on the line is provided by our breastfeeding counsellors, who are qualified to share trusted and inclusive information, and most importantly, no judgment. Often they are also able to offer support with other feeding relating topics, so things like sleep, which is always a big issue for parents, crying, going back to work, relationship strains and more. They help with lots of things around having a new baby and what the impact that can have on a family. One of the most important things obviously is support is free. And the line is open from 8 a.m. till midnight, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it really is like a really inclusive, accessible service. And it supports over 8,000 callers a year. On the next few slides, you will see some quotes from parents about the supports that they have been given. Cannot recommend the infant feeding line enough, an absolute lifeline in the early days of breastfeeding. Sometimes, just speaking to someone can be enough. Just hearing myself say this aloud has made me realise that he is just fine. Thank you so much. This call has been amazing. I feel so much better having spoken to you. So just the importance of that listening ear, and never any judgment. some interesting facts about the infant feeding line. Mornings are generally the busiest time for parents to call, which can often come after an unsettled evening with their baby. Calls are usually made for when babies are very young. So the majority of parents have a baby under 3 months when they first contact the infant feeding line. And the top 3 reasons for calling the line in August were seeking reassurance, support with positioning or attachment during feeds, and information on expressing milk. So the bulk of the calls are connected with breastfeeding, but obviously they can support on all those other various issues that we mentioned. Whilst it's often the parent who calls the infant feeding line, it's also really common for them to support grandparents, sisters, and healthcare providers as well. So anybody, you know, that is supporting someone feeding a baby can access support from our feeding line. We're passionate about supporting parents in all communities, so we've got a real ambition to make the infant feeding line more accessible and inclusive. And what we would love from you as community builders is if you could help us spread the word about this. So there is obviously some information on your screen, and you'll see there's a link there. There's a promotional toolkit on NCT Hub, which you can use if you wanted to put in any of your publications, social media posts, you know, anything like that. If you're looking for content, there's some templates on there, images, etc., that are ready to go for you to use. So that was just a really, really quick tour of the infant feeding line, but we thought it might be useful for you to have a look at. Does anyone have any questions or have any experience with the infant feeding line or anything that you wanted to say about it?
Yeah, sorry. Done something with my camera. I was just going to ask, would it be possible for you to actually send this link out again? So I
Yes.
can,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't worry. We will do that. Yeah, I'll share the slides when we put up the recording, and I will put the link in there as well. Okay, no problem. I'm just going to sort out my slides. There we go. Right. So, inclusive language. So, using inclusive language is always something that we've been conscious of at NCT, but with the launch of our strategy recently and work that our EDI team have been doing alongside that, developing NCT's language guide, it's something that we're really focusing on now. So we wanted to sort of give you a bit of an overview of that today, in preparation for an all community event that's coming up next week, which you're welcome to join if you haven't already seen the comms about it. So NCT is a charity that supports people as they become parents, and we aim to put parents at the heart of what we do, and we want to better support all parents through their unique journeys of pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood. And that means that equity and inclusion are core to what we do. And we all know that language is a really powerful tool, and that's why it's so important that everyone at NCT uses consistent and inclusive language in all interactions. The words we use when we speak to people in our community or on social media are really important to help every parent feel included, supported, represented, and seen. As community builders, obviously you play a really big part in this, in showing your wider community through the words that you use and the posts that you create, how they can expect to be treated at NCT. So simple things like wording on posters, images, captions on social media all help to build that picture and that trust that all parents will be welcome at NCT events and services in your local area and across the wider community. So on the next few slides, we're going to see some images we can do a bit of an activity together of resources that an NCT branch might create or might use on their social media or in a flyer or a poster in their local community. So we just wanted to have a look at some of those together. They're not real ones. We have made them for this exercise, but they are inspired by things that we have seen or do see regularly out there in the communities. And we want you to think about the overall feel, message of these words and images that are used. When you have a look at them, what are your thoughts? Do they feel inclusive? Is there anything that you would avoid? Anything that you would change to improve them? So let's see. This is the first one, which is a Facebook post about bumps and babies. Have a quick look at that and then let me know if you've got any thoughts.
All a bit white.
Yes, good spot. Yeah, so that's the point that we're trying to make with this one. So the wording itself, you know, is fairly neutral and we don't have any issues with that. But yeah, we would ideally love to use some more inclusive images, and that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, different ethnicities, but having some dads in there, some younger parents, older parents. Obviously, if you're using images from an actual group, that can't always be achieved. You know, we understand that you're not always going to have a diverse mix at your groups. But if you are creating something where you want to attract more parents to a group or an activity, then do consider using images from NCT Hub, which can be of, you know, real groups, or we also have some stock images. I would say we wouldn't probably use these stock images. These haven't come from NCT Hub. These have come from Canva, because they all look a bit polished and shiny. They don't look like an actual group, I don't think. I don't know who would run a playgroup in a room with a white floor, but there you go. So yeah, that was good spot for that one. The next one is for walk and talk. Any thoughts?
The thing that jumped out to me then was join us for Gentle Walk to meet other mums. And yeah, the photographs are very inclusive because I can see dads there as well. But
Yeah.
it's wording only specifies the mums.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that you know, we are really conscious of these days. You know, historically NCT has often used the term mums or mothers, or, you know, use that language in a lot of our posts, and, you know, we are conscious now that that doesn't feel inclusive for a lot of families. So yes, absolutely, we try and avoid using just mums in our posts and language generally. So our preferred term is parents. This one, Christmas party flyer. Any thoughts on that?
It's very straight to the point, but it doesn't really say who is able to attend. Like, is there certain age limits? Are siblings allowed to attend? You know, anything? There's not really much information on there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always a good idea to have, like you say, some information about, you know, is there going to be a cost, so that people know up front. Generally, does anybody have any thoughts about a Christmas party?
Not everybody celebrates Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. So would you, it's fine to have a party at the end of the year. You know, it's really great. And the images, I think, on this flyer are absolutely fine, because there's no religious connotations or anything that could be off-putting. It really is a wintry picture, isn't it? So I think in this instance, we would prefer a festive party or an end of year party or something like that. But yeah, also with some more information about who it's aimed at and what it's going to be like when you get there is also useful. This one, Mother's Day. So here you've got a bit more information, like Barbara mentioned, about letting people know what's actually happening, which is good. Any thoughts? This is a bit of a tricky one. Obviously we know, that we're a charity that supports parents, and the majority of those are mothers. But again, I suppose it comes back to the language around mums and mothers, that if you were a family where there wasn't a mum, would you feel included by this event? So and again, we don't want to stop people from having these kinds of celebration events that are important in a lot of people's calendars, but it's just about perhaps thinking about what could be done to this activity to make it more inclusive for all families. So you could have something that said card making for special person, or for use mums, grandparents, parents. So just thinking about the general feel and audience of your activities, and would it put off other parents who might want to come to your group? And the last one, this is a Nearly New Sale poster. If anyone has any comments about this one.
The only thing that I was actually going to point out was, is there going to be a charge for actually getting in there? But that's not really inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always really important to include, because some parents need to know, don't they, what it's going to cost them to get to something, and it's also that I can't go back now. On the previous post, this one, which I didn't mention. I'm gonna have to go all the way back through again. Ideally, if our groups are charging to enter, we would always prefer that to be a suggested donation. So if there is a cost for an activity, we would like it to be mentioned that it's a donation, so that if a parent can't afford it, they can still participate in that activity. This one, what we're looking at is the accessibility. So parking across the street, I mean, that can't always be helped, but no prams. Does anyone have any feelings about what that could mean for some parents?
Single parents might not be able to attend if they've got a young baby, or a small baby and a toddler. As a single parent, it's going to feel crap, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, so there's lots of reasons, aren't there, where prams might be needed. So I think some of the reasons that teams ask for no prams at Nearly New Sales can be a space issue. So they want to make sure, that they can get enough stuff into their venue to make their sale, an enjoyable and worthwhile shopping experience for parents. But if you're saying that there's not enough space for prams, then there's probably not going to be enough space for a wheelchair. If it's not accessible to prams because of stairs, or issues, narrow doorways, narrow spaces between tables at sales, then it's also not going to be accessible for a wheelchair. And aside from that, there are parents that might need to have a pram to carry their babies. So some people will encourage baby wearing at their sales, which again, is absolutely fine. But saying that people categorically can't bring prams is an issue because it's not accessible. So, you know, if a baby had disability issues, might be on oxygen, something like that, they might need to be in a pram. If the parent had disabilities and for whatever reason couldn't carry the baby or needed, you know, the pram to support them. So there's lots of reasons why a parent might need to bring a pram into a sale. So we would not want to see no prams at all. Like you could word this to encourage people to leave their prams at home if possible, but we really wouldn't want to see no prams categorically like that. Does that make sense? Does anybody have sort of any feelings, reactions, comments to that exercise? No, okay, right. I'm going to move on. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, NCT is launching its new language guide, and that will be fully presented at our all community event next week on Wednesday at 10:30. And after that, the full language guide will be shared for you to read and use and refer to if you ever have questions or doubts or just want to double check like wording that you might use. I'm just going to play this video so that you can see a little bit more about what it's all about.
We are proud to be launching the NCT Language Guide, a new resource to help us use consistent language and create the safest, most inclusive and accessible experiences for parents. Inside, you'll find 4 sections. In each section, we provided a list of terms that we recommend avoiding, ones we prefer, and a short, simple explanation about why. Words matter. Used wisely, language can make people feel included, seen, represented, and supported. The guide will help us ensure that our language reflects the diversity of parents, so people can see and hear about experiences that reflect their own. The guide will help parents to access the information, support, and services that are right for them. Using accessible, personalised language is also in line with our new For Every Parent strategy. Being there for every parent means providing equitable access, information, and opportunities, working hard to reach underserved groups of people, acknowledging not every parent starts from the same place. The NCT Language Guide is a tool for everyone in the NCT community. It will support the way we communicate with each other and interact with parents. You'll use this tool in your day-to-day work for NCT, from social media to presentations and meetings. We'll be officially launching the NCT Language Guide at an all-community event on Wednesday the 27th of September as part of National Inclusion Week. Our internal launch will allow us all time to adapt ahead of making the guide available on our website. Before then, it will be for internal use only. More information will be shared in the lead up to the launch, and if you have any questions before then, please contact the communications team.
Okay, so stop sharing so I can see everybody again. Yeah, so that little video obviously just gives you a little bit of a summary, and as I said, if you are free and would like to come along to that all community event, please do. You are more than welcome. They're always interesting events if you are around. There's a different topic each month. I think you should have received an email with a link to register, but I will also pop that in the email when we send out the slides so that you can register if you would like to. So just before we move on to the last section where we just all have a bit of a chat and see how you're getting on, any questions around that, around language? How did that feel? Was there anything there that made you feel more confident around what language to use, or the other way around? Did it make you question anything that you were already doing or thinking about?
I think for me it was just more of a refresher, just a reminder type thing. And
Yeah.
it's always good to have that consistency, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and that's what we're hoping, this guide will achieve, that there's a place where everyone can go. Obviously there are times where people really want to create a post or do something that shows allyship and support for different communities, but don't always know the right words to use. And we have seen examples of that, on social media in branches where people were really trying to do the right thing, but just used a word that, perhaps wasn't the best choice, and that post then had the opposite effect of offending people. And, that's not what we want. That's not what we want for you as volunteers. We want you to have access to the tools to make sure that you're confident and comfortable in the terms that you're choosing. So, if you wanted to create a post around Pride or Father's Day or, some celebration or awareness week or something like that, that you have access to that information and those terms to use or avoid, to make sure that you feel comfortable. So yeah. And there's always, support from our team and also from our EDI team. If you ever have questions around anything like this, or even after looking at the language guides, if there's something that still doesn't make sense or doesn't feel quite right, or you wanted to check, we're here, and Louise, our EDI lead, is always really happy to have chats with anyone about that. I have stopped sharing so I can see you all. So let's make some time now just to have a catch up. We know that obviously some of you haven't got teams with a lot of volunteers yet, so we want you to have some time to be able to sort of connect with others. We've got some bits to, well, we were hoping that Tony was going to be here from Newcastle to let us know about his press release. He has sent me something to share with you, so I'll be able to do that. But yeah, how is everyone? Kelly, how are you getting on in Hemel? How's things going?
Yeah, okay. I've come to a bit of a rut, I would say. I think with all the back to school, the new sort of academic year, it
Yes.
seems to be that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is now running a, mother and baby class, a soft
Okay.
play, a messy play. So I'm finding that my news feeds for NCT are absolutely inundated with posts about mothers groups, parents groups.
That's interesting.
And I don't know if it's off the back of, having had a summer where the weather was dreadful, so there wasn't much going outside and people looking to connect. I think also that the local family centre have really upped their game. They've either employed somebody or they've got a lot of it's a renewed focus, because they're putting out posts now, I want to say twice a day, every day, whereas before it was very much like one a week. So I'm finding probably saturation point in terms of for my feeds, and I'm really going to have to probably pull back and refocus on why NCT stands out in the local community. Why should you come to NCT rather than go to that baby group or that mother's group or something? Because I think I can do as many posts as we want, but if they're all advertising the same thing,
Yeah.
there's nothing to differentiate us. Which made me think, and having since been running the Instagram account, had a really good pickup at the start, but then it's really tailed off. Yesterday, I think my post yesterday about a nearly new sale only got to 5 accounts, and that was just really. So I think as much as I can post on groups and what have you, I think I'm just going to have to get out there and perhaps hold something like not a relaunch, but a Hemel and Burko are NCT are back. Come and meet the practitioners, come and meet me. What can we offer you? And hold effectively a meet and greet relaunch somewhere, and try and effectively upsell NCTs. Key points, the antenatal classes, the feeding line, and all those bits that you don't get with a parents group at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday morning with a cup of coffee. Because otherwise I think
Do you
I'm
have
just going to be outdone.
do you have a feel for what's missing in that landscape? If there's a lot of baby groups or walk type group, like you say, 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, do you do you get a feeling that, is it that we need to target recruitment and
definitely
something in the
recruitment is an
evening,
issue.
or
I mean, there's a whole host of angles I'd like to explore. Recruitment still is very much an issue. I've got nobody other than Lisa, who's got a writing contract at the moment, so she's obviously working full time. And even trying to advertise for a sales coordinator, even the offer of only having to do one sale a year is still not enough to get people to come forward at the moment. Having noticed about all the family groups, is there's nothing I would say for newborns. It all tends to be 6 months plus, walking plus, maybe. Messy play is another one that's really popular here at the moment. So nothing I would say for expectant parents, and nothing for, oh God, I've just got out of hospital. I'm still in my pajamas 2 weeks in. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So they're definitely angles I'd like to explore and see where I can fit in there. But again, I kind of feel like it's a stumbling around in the dark to see what's going to work.
Yeah. Have you managed to have a chat with any health visiting teams or anything like that? They're obviously the parents, the people that see the parents at that early stage, aren't they?
Yeah, I haven't managed to get any of that at the moment, mainly because my daughter started school 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
So it's been
don't worry. I suppose perhaps that's a really good angle, isn't it? So I suppose the benefit of you seeing all of this stuff on social media about what already exists is, it can help you to identify what's missing, and it sounds like you've done that already. So maybe if you perhaps focus on that particular niche of what can we get started here, who are the people that I could speak to about that if I'm looking for volunteers for this. And I think also for new parents, expectant parents and parents of a newborn, sometimes the timing's important, because with a newborn, it doesn't really matter sometimes, does it, if it's 10 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the evening? And if you're an expectant parent with your first baby, maybe something in an evening or a weekend is actually what you are looking for, because you're still working. So maybe that's something to think about as well.
I think also it's possibly the best, but also the worst time of the year. I was told when I went to my NCT antenatal course, I mean, bear in mind this is now 5 years ago, that September the 26th was the most popular day to have a baby. And I know that because it was my due date. So it was kind of a case of, I know that I'm along the right lines in getting people, having been doing things like, here's what to pack in your labour bag, here's tips to keep cool during labour for a birth partner, having done the birth stuff as that seems to be coming up. But also in terms of, I need to probably look at the, oh God, I just found out I'm expecting, all that kind of stuff that's probably early pregnancy, that if you're not due on September the 26th, if you're at the opposite end of the 9 months, to look at as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a good picture of what exists near you and what's needed. So, but yeah, obviously you're getting your little girl settled is most important, isn't it? So when you've got some time. Yeah. Barbara, what about you? How are things going for you?
Well, I'm still volunteerless at the
Yeah.
moment. It's still me in the area as far as what I'm aware. I'm still looking at the posters up everywhere. I've been basically scouring the whole of St. Helens and posting them here, there, and everywhere. I've been in my local shops as well, and they've finally put some up in the window at my local library.
Amazing.
Whilst I've been out and about as well, I've been looking for posters in shop windows for other baby and toddler groups as well. And found that a lot of them, to be fair, don't run anymore.
Ah,
And I have actually been just generally querying with some of these groups. Hi, is your group still on? And no, we haven't been running it for years. So it's like I'm finding posters everywhere for these type of groups, but there doesn't seem to be anything else. So there is a big target, especially
okay.
in this area, but nobody seems to be beaten at the minute.
Okay.
But Ellie's actually mentioned quite a few good points there, um about the expectant mums as well. And I was thinking, I've not seen anything around here at all for women who are actually expecting. It's all, and like something else that she's mentioned as well, babies who are already on the move. So, crawlers and toddlers,
Yeah.
they all seem to be those type of focuses rather than the newborns or the slightly older kids, slightly too young for school, but too old for the baby groups.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that at all.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, isn't it? That like as a parent of a newborn, particularly a first time, you might be quite nervous about bringing your tiny little baby to a room full of toddlers and flashing toys.
Exactly.
So something, specifically for bumps and babies, that can work quite nicely. But similarly, if you're a parent of a second child, then it's really useful to have somewhere where you can take both children. I know that I struggled with that with my second one, that there was all the stuff for the newborn I couldn't take my walking toddler. And I didn't necessarily want to take my newborn to the activities I could take my walking toddler. So yeah. But it's really interesting, Barbara, that you've got the opposite where there's hardly anything. So hopefully getting something up and running there could be a real success, couldn't it? Have you had any volunteering inquiries yet? Sometimes we get a lot of people inquire but not really follow through.
No, I've only actually heard of one thing, and that was an email. I can't remember who sent it out, whether it was yourself or whether it was Louise or someone
About
else.
the youth volunteer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not heard anything else since then.
Yeah, no, we haven't either. So we'll follow that back up again, but I think she's dropped off the radar.
But what I was actually thinking about doing, there's a small community centre near enough on my doorstep, and I was thinking, not straight away, but maybe in a month or two, a couple of months, I might see if I can set up like a monthly coffee morning or something like that. Just more for the mums and dads type of thing rather than the kiddies, because I've noticed as well, all of these groups that I have been seeing that are unfortunately no longer around, they're all about the kids. And what about the mums? Because my two, I mean, granted, they've just turned 12 and I've got an 8-year-old now, so they're older now. But when they were younger, there was all groups for them and there was no groups for me.
Yeah,
and it was me who was suffering. They were perfectly fine, as kids. They could either play on their own or they play with other kids. They really did not care. But me, in myself, I struggled. I couldn't speak to anybody else because I also found I was an older mum. I had my first baby when I was 31, and I hate the term. I was a geriatric mother. I hate that term, and I was even more so when I had my 8-year-old. I was 35 when I had him, and it's so all the other mums were like in the very early 20s, so I didn't fit in. So I'm thinking maybe that could be a focal point as well, maybe reaching out for older mums, and especially older first time mums that wouldn't fit in with the 21,
Yeah.
22-year-old clique.
Yeah, and as long as it's it's absolutely fine to have a group with a focus for a particular demographic or group, as long as obviously if anyone else came they wouldn't be
yeah, of
turned away.
course.
But yeah, absolutely. And this is it, isn't it? It's that it's identifying those sort of gaps in what exists from your your local knowledge and your research, and then trying to fill those. One of the things obviously that we've mentioned in the Teams channel, and that Tony in Newcastle has done, he's put out a press release recently to get some volunteers to support the walk and talk that they've got running there. And it's just things like that can really help to get that awareness out in the community, whether it's a general press release like you say, Kelly, we're back and this is what we're looking to do, or if it is that you've got a certain thing in mind, we want to run a nearly new sale, or we want to get a group up and running. It can be a really great way to sort of widen that audience, and even if parents themselves don't see it, we hear so many people saying, oh, my mom read it in the paper and she told me about it, or it's that word of mouth, isn't it? So the more different places in your community that you can get that message out there, the better.
Absolutely.
Really.
And I'm still going as well. I've still got a few posters that I've printed out that I've still got other places that I've not hit yet. And because I'm in St Helens, Wigan is, yeah, it might be linked to St Helens, but it's still a bit of a trek away, and I've not even touched that side of things yet.
But don't worry about that. Focus, start small, focus on one area.
Yeah.
And then, and we would always recommend to focus on the area that's close to you and that and that you're comfortable with, because that's where your strength is, isn't it? In knowing what exists or what doesn't exist. And then if you can get something up and running in St Helens, fantastic. And then we can think about, right, do we attack another area, or do we develop what we've got here? So don't try and spread yourself too thinly. We'd rather focus on one thing at a time. Catherine, are you still with us? Yay.
Yeah, sorry, I have my little one, so
don't worry. Anything, how are you getting on? Because I know you've got an existing team that are doing some great things already. What's your focus at the moment?
Yeah, existing team, lots going on. So I was just trying to think what I could share, which would be really relevant for everyone. And I think one thing that might be of interest to Kelly was that we ran a toddler group before COVID. And we've got grants for later soft play equipment and everything else, and it was fabulous. But it hasn't run since COVID. There's a lady who runs a toddler play group in the community, which is super lovely. It's a fabulous little setup that she has going with her sessions. But I actually, whilst I don't have any volunteers to run our session, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to message this lady. And it sounds like there's going to be a possible opportunity for collaboration. So we might actually sort of work together and have a joint NCT, hers is Toddler Tales, so NCT Toddler Tales group. So I think there are other options, not just like competing against the other things that are already there, but actually using the other facilities that are already there, the other groups and things. There might be.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I know there's
obviously it's different for everyone.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking as you said that I know there's a group somewhere that runs a sling library alongside a different organization's toddler type group. So they didn't have volunteers within the NCT branch to start their own toddler group or bumps and babies, but they did have volunteers who wanted to run a sling library, and they knew that was needed in the area. So they sort of piggyback that service onto an existing toddler group in the area. So yeah. And I think that's like in Malvern, where Catherine volunteers, you've got all kinds of amazing things that have been, you know, established for a while, but things like they have a welly library where parents can borrow wellies, because that's something that we know never gets outgrown. And you've got Sling Library, haven't you? So you know, perhaps sometimes it's looking at though, I mean, it doesn't have to be something really innovative, but you know, is there a Sling library nearby? Is there a nappy library? You know, maybe it's looking at other NCT services. You know, is there someone doing first aid locally? Is that a gap in the market? You know, should we start with something different if other areas are already saturated? But yeah, that's a really good point and really useful. Thank you, Catherine. How what's your particular focus in the community builder? Like, have you got a plan for what you want to achieve?
Yeah, my particular angle at the moment is just the bit that I haven't really done in our area is fully engage with all the other local charities and businesses and the local council, people like that are all on my list. Establish a bit more relationship with it.
Yeah. Is that just to sort of grow the reach of your existing groups, or is that to attract more volunteers, or have you got an angle for that?
A bit of everything. I happen to notice the council have an event on, I think it's next week, it's in December, which was literally, it's an event where they want charities and other local volunteers to all come together to talk to each other. So I was like, well, that sounds like something I want to go to. And if they do more things like that, I always want to be invited to that. So it's really just reminding the community that we're here. But we do get quite good turnover for antenatal classes and things in our area.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. You have a good relationship, don't you, with your antenatal practitioners?
Yeah, we do. I'd say at the moment still my biggest thing would be probably similar to everyone though, is getting actual active volunteers to take on committed roles, which I think will always be the battle.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And obviously part of this role and the Future Volunteering Project is to, you know, sort of make that a bit easier, so we don't have to have someone in every, you know, role that we used to have historically within the branch, but at the same time having a core group of volunteers that you know you can rely on to run a sale every year, or to be that lead for Bumps and Babies, is a really strong position, which is what we're all aiming for, isn't it? Good. Okay. Well, thank you. It sounds like, you know, everyone's doing some great stuff, and I know it can be really frustrating when you feel like you're, you know, hitting a bit of a brick wall, but do get in touch with us, you know, if there's anything that you want to chat through. We will be getting in touch with everyone individually to arrange a bit of a sort of one-to-one check-in over the next couple of months anyway, just so that we can have sort of more of these conversations in detail and see if there's any areas that we can support you with, or just chat through and, you know, share ideas. Do use the you know, the Community Builder channel if you find that useful, to sort of pool resources. You know, if you like Tony did, you know, if you write a press release or you do something, you know, shove it in there, because it might be useful to someone else as well, and cut down the work that we all are doing. Just as a final checkout question, I just wanted to ask you if anyone has sort of anything that they might take away after today's chat about inclusivity and language. Is there one thing that you think, yes, I'm going to do this to make sure that I am more inclusive, or to continue that thought process around inclusivity. Anybody got anything they'd like to share?
I think I'll just double check all my language from now on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great
Just to be on
starting
the safe
point,
side.
isn't it? It's a
But
good
also, I
start.
am going to now hold a festive party, because that's a great idea.
Yes, amazing. If you so I don't think you were all around, but about a year ago now, we got some funding from Lidl for parent support, which was distributed to branches that were running groups and things at the time, and there was a deadline to spend it of the end of September. So we are going to be doing a review of all of those funds, and if there's some left in the pot, which we think there will be, that might be available for things like parties or new groups that are starting up. So if you are doing something like that and buying something at Lidl would help, let us know, because there is definitely some money there already, but there might be some more. So that's just one to think about. Catherine, have you got a takeaway from today?
Yeah, first of all, I think we're getting through our Lidl grants, so we'll have no problems with the additional
Amazing. Good.
loads of activities. They just keep coming. And the other one, my takeaway, I want to go and check our nearly new sale and what we've said about prams. That's my takeaway. I don't know what we said. I just
Excellent.
thought I'll have a double check.
Excellent. Thank you. Barbara?
I don't think there's any one specific thing that I'm going to take away from today. I think I'm just going to roll it all into one and just combine everything, really.
Yeah.
It's been
Good.
very useful, so just use everything that I've learned today.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I'm glad that it has been useful, and it's always lovely to chat with you all and catch up. At the end of the call, there will be a feedback survey that pops up through Zoom. So do please fill that in for us, because it's really useful to know how you're finding things, and also get feedback on what you would like to see more of, less of in future sessions. But yeah, thank you for coming along. As I said, we will be in touch over the next few weeks or so to arrange sort of individual calls with you all, and we'll be doing another one of these in November, so look out for that. But thank you all, have a great day, and we'll look forward to catching up soon. Take care.
Well, thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks.